Hi.
Welcome to the news and why it matters. I am Sara Gonzalez. There's a lot of testosterone in the room around me right now. We'll start with... What was that?
This growl just came out. I don't know where that came. No.
Stu, what's the top story for you?
We have a new Me Too scandal that is breaking. It's already resulted in a lost job, and this is something I think we all need to understand is not okay in our society anymore.
All right, Pat Gray.
I continue to be concerned about the dangerous possibility of a Democrat win. Really,
it's not funny still.
Yeah,
No,
it's
I
really
mean,
bad.
I was
bad.
on Predict Today, which is one of those prediction markets, and they say Donald Trump currently has a 39% chance of being president.
Seriously?
That's what they currently.
39%?
Now, if you say that's crazy, you can go bet on it and make lots of money.
Wow.
But that's what they say right now, 39% chance.
That's bad.
Pretty much what they said last election,
That's
too.
bad.
Jason.
And he won, right?
Yeah.
But if you knew, you could have made lots of money.
What's
So
your
you
top
should.
story, Jason?
We have official immigration numbers, people that are approaching the border and getting in. They just came out, I believe, yesterday or today.
Is the border secure?
Yep.
Totally secure.
It's
Zero
totally
people
secure.
crossed?
0 people. I mean, it's amazing. So we
Wow,
don't need
that's
the wall.
great. Good. Well said.
Nightmare. We'll
Yeah.
go into that.
All right, a lot to get into. First, I want to thank our sponsor, American Financing. I actually just recommended them to my neighbor because she unfortunately went through this awful divorce and was stuck with lawyer's fees, and now she has the house and she's got to refinance, and she's like, oh crap, I don't know if I, how to even start this.
What was the problem with her husband? What was her issue? Why'd they get divorced? What happened?
Yeah.
It was actually...
No, don't. Don't answer it.
I didn't expect you to answer that.
I'm going to tell you something really funny about you, what you just asked off air.
All right.
But
It's your wife.
but point being, American Financing are people that you can trust. What I love is that they don't take, it's not a commission-based structure. They're salary-based, so you know that they're in it because they truly want to help you, not just for the money.
Yeah, and you mentioned that situation. Like they actually they specialize in these really complicated situations, and they can break it all down for you. That's been one of the things I really liked about working with them is they were able to explain what this fee is and how this closing cost works and what government thing they're hitting us for on this side, and they can kind of take you through all of it. So it doesn't feel like you're in another language, in another country speaking a foreign language.
Yeah. You can go to AmericanFinancing.net or call 800-906-2440. Let them help you. Stu, Me Too, hashtag Me Too.
Yes, and I also hashtag Time's Up. And Time's Up.
Hashtag Believe All Women.
Yes, hashtag Believe All Women. Well, not in this case.
Oh.
Okay, so hashtag Time's Up is the important one, I think, here, because it's time. We all knew this was wrong the entire time, and now we finally see it coming true, that people are getting punished for their horrible actions. When you do something so disrespectful, you invade people's personal space, you sexually harass them overtly. When something like that happens, you should lose your job. And that's what happened to Don Marsh. He's a radio host in St. Louis, a public radio host, been there for a million years. He's 75 years old. But he did something that was unforgivable and wound up in a lost job. And I want to prepare you, if you have small children in the room, please make sure you take them out. This is going to get a little ugly here for a few seconds. But here is what he said that he says got him fired. The quote was, "I told her she looked great."
Oh my gosh, I just threw up in my mouth.
So he has a guest coming in, which was another news anchor, a former news anchor, and she's also in her 70s. I think he's 77, she's 75. She comes in, he says, "I told her I looked great, she looked great." And I guess a producer who was there was offended by this and reported him to management. After the show ended, management took him in. This is what he says happened. He said, I said, "Are you basically saying what I did was wrong?" and he said the manager made a gesture with his hand like, "Well, it's right on the edge." And I said, "That's it, I'm done." And he walked out. He was so pissed off about being accused of this. Now the station is saying, "Well, no, that wasn't really the reason, and we didn't want him to quit," and they're trying to backtrack on it. And it's not 100% clear. Obviously, there's no cameras in there. The woman, however, did say that something like this happened. he did say that she looked great.
No.
Yeah, no.
So we have confirmation
That's
from the
confirmed.
woman.
Yeah, and
Wow.
here's what she says about the confirmation. She says, as a woman who's long argued for the equitable treatment of women, I'm highly alert to sexism and discrimination, and I sense absolutely none of that in his reading.
Good thing he's gone.
Yeah, good thing he's out.
thing
I'm
he's
glad
gone.
this guy's out.
Wow.
I mean, this is the ridiculous level.
my God.
And you get the sense
The
from
next step for him would be killing people in the office.
Yes, I think so.
It's,
I think
it's
a
the
great
next
point.
step.
And this is the thing, like, it's like, this is how sensitive we are. You definitely get the sense reading this, and I don't know these hosts per se, but they're on public radio, and she says basically, yes, I'm very liberal on women's issues, right? He seems the same as well, and even people who are on the left who are saying you look great, like that is becoming a controversial thing. We are so far over the line of sanity, and I don't know how it stops, especially when you make the standard how, in this case, the woman feels. Now, in this case, this woman actually said I was totally fine with it, but the producer was offended. Does she also get that same right? Like, if she was offended, does it matter if they had a good interaction? Does it even matter? Because we learned this with all these Biden accusers. Everyone's saying, like, look, it's not sexual. He wasn't trying to do anything. His intent wasn't bad, but it was a little bit in the personal space. And then everyone said, but that doesn't matter. What matters is how she felt. That's the only standard. We have to only look at her feelings. And if that's the standard, then she's able to define his life. In every situation, the woman is able to say, well, I think you should go to prison. I think you should lose your job because of the way I felt. Well, he can't control how you feel. What if you're insane? I don't want to cross any lines here, but some women are insane.
I would not disagree with you there.
It's funny. I was talking to somebody the other day, and I was like, they were talking about the Pete Buttigieg candidacy, and I was like, really? I think that's when you're talking intersectionality. I think the intersectionality world wants the first gay president. They're done with the first women president. That's like a thing that's already in their minds kind of happened. Women have a lot of important jobs at this point. And like, is there anyone in the world who says we don't want a woman president? And of course, this female, as they often do, said, yeah, me. I know women. I do not want a woman president. It's always women who say it.
Exactly.
It's always women who say it. So anyway, this is just another ridiculous case. The Biden thing is going on. He made a big speech today where, Jason was convinced that he may just announce he's running at the end of the speech. It was filled with policy, and it was at a union shop. And
Once again, Jason was wrong.
that was the summary.
The list is long. No, as I was listening to it, I was like, here it comes, here it comes.
It felt that way.
He was quoting Ronald Reagan at one point. The speech was at like electrical workers, manufacturers, construction workers, stuff like that. This was Lunchbox Joe's domain.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like if you were gonna like make a plea to the middle class, which that's exactly what this was. This was him saying, look, back to the party that's back to the blue collar worker.
And remember,
he sounded like 1992 Clinton, absolutely.
And Trump won with Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. This is why Biden is so dangerous.
What was that quote from? Was it Michael Moore when he was like, "I knew this guy was going to be president when I heard him speak to the Michigan people." That's who Biden just sounded like just now.
Now we also do have this week a big show coming up on Joe Biden, kind of a big expose, and along with that, we are going to be running, and this is we have it right here, the Joe Biden dossier. Now there's multiple things going on here because we have a real investigation we're airing on Thursday. However, this is just the material that will be populating our NCAA tournament bracket style event of the creepiest picture of Joe Biden. And if you go through, we're going to have we have 64 pictures here to go through. Which picture is the creepiest of Joe Biden? It's all Joe and people's personal space. And there's some classics, but there's a lot in here I've never seen before.
Please tell me you've got the biker chick sitting on his lap.
Oh yeah, we got that. That's
Okay,
definitely in here.
Good.
So we have a very interesting rundown on Joe Biden next week. So you're gonna have a chance to
You're gonna have a bracket.
vote. You're gonna be able to vote on each matchup, and then we're gonna through Monday through Thursday night. On the show about Joe Biden, we'll announce the winner of the creepiest Joe Biden photo. So you want to be part of that for sure.
For real?
We're really doing it next week. It's going to be
love
fun.
this so much.
Oh yeah, well we'll bring some of the matchups on for
Please.
News and Why next week because people need to see it.
But yeah, I also want to point out about that show is if you think that is the highlight or the worst things about Mr. Joe Biden, prepare to be amazed or maybe even disgusted at some of the things that we have found. It is like, I don't know if I'm willing to say maybe one of the most corrupt people running for president, but we're pretty dang close.
Yeah, I mean, Peter Schweizer, who knows this stuff. I mean, he's the guy who wrote Clinton Cash. He also wrote a book about Republican corruption. I mean, he's a guy who's hit both sides on this. He's the guy largely responsible for the changing of the laws that let Congress do insider trading. I mean, he was, really the guy who exposed that and was responsible for it. He says that Joe Biden is the most corrupt vice president in American history.
Oh, he said that.
Whoa.
Wow.
And that's a big statement. I mean, I mean, if you kind of go back, there's been a couple crazy ones.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, people shooting at each other in some of these situations.
We're not talking about thousands or millions of dollars involved in some of the things that we're going to talk about next Thursday. We're talking about billions of dollars involved.
Wow. Pat, I want to move on to the dangerous extremism of
Yeah, it's fun to laugh about Joe, middle class Joe, lunch
Lunchbox
pail,
Joe.
lunchbox Joe. But then you start looking at the Democrats and what they've proposed so far. Let's just review for a second some of the proposals of what the Democrats are calling for and what this would do to the United States of America. So far, and this is almost all of these candidates are calling for eliminating ICE. They're calling, many of them just want open borders. There is pretty much agreement on a 70% income tax on the wealthy. The $100 trillion Green New Deal is widely accepted by the candidates. Socialized medicine, I don't know anybody who's not for that on the Democrat side. Socialized higher education.
And Joe Biden actually mentioned that as well.
Did he in his policy thing today?
Well, and quickly on that before you go on, it was interesting to see him. This is why Biden, I think, is an effective candidate, and I think it's why he is dangerous in a general election. Everyone's on the left is saying free college, free college, free college. What Joe Biden said was free community college. Okay, so he's already kind of looking like he's in between, right? He's in the middle. He's the rational one. And in addition to that, he specified a tax loophole that he was calling it. That would pay for it with plenty left over. So he wasn't saying like, let's just spend $1 trillion. Like, what Ocasio-Cortez says is like, oh, well, we're rich and we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, here's the specific tax loophole we could close to pay for it, and it would be done in a minute.
And he said specifically how much it would cost.
Yeah, it's like he said it's going to cost $6 billion,
really
and he said the tax loophole would save $17 billion. We'd have $11 billion to pay down the deficit. Gosh darn it, or whatever the heck he kept saying.
Crying out loud.
He kept saying, for God's sake, and for crying out loud, like over and over and over again. But he's relatively effective with these speeches.
Yeah, he is. Then we go on to legalized infanticide, which seems to be,
okay.
supported by many of them. Amazingly, they've gone back to reparations now. I haven't seen this in a long time, but they're all jumping aboard the reparations.
Beto just jumped aboard.
I haven't heard much on that. So
Several of them have already talked about
literally
it
just
and
want
are on board with
financial reparations.
Yes.
to both Native and African Americans.
And they all want an actual mule. They want it's either their 40 acres
they do.
and the actual mule.
Yes, they do. They're all talking about packing the Supreme Court now, and eliminating the Electoral College. They've already put forward the constitutional amendment to do that. Any one of these policies would cripple the United States by itself. All of them together, or any number of them together, I think are the end of the republic. This is such an important election, and I'm not the biggest Donald Trump fan on the planet.
Really?
And I haven't made, I know, it's been pretty secret. I've kept it really quiet.
Thank you for that News and Why It Matters exclusive.
But I can't imagine a scenario where we elect a Democrat now in 2020 or ever again, because they're just too extreme. They're just too radical now. They're so far into Marxism and so far into extreme ideas. The infanticide thing is unbelievable all by itself. That to turn the country over to them with a majority in either house would be deadly to the United States.
I think too, if they get the House, they will. The thing that wasn't on that recent list, but some of them are already supporting, is getting rid of the filibuster in the Senate.
Right.
For everything, including just normal laws. And if they get power, they will do that, and they will do it, and they will be able to pass anything. And you won't need 60 votes to get crazy stuff through. They'll do it with 51.
Wow, if that happens,
frightening.
then you will see the fundamental change of this country.
Yes,
All right, back in a minute.
it's really frightening.
You look great too.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my
Oh my
gosh.
gosh.
Before we move on, I want to thank our sponsor, Real Estate Agents I Trust. So there are, I think, 10 million people just in one, specific area who are like, oh, I also do real estate. Jason told a funny story about how his plumber is like handyman who came over to his house, gave him his card, and by the way, I'm also a real estate agent. Something tells me that's not the people who are the experts.
He's a dabbler. Yeah, he's dabbling in it.
He just dabbles. We got a lot of dabblers these days. They do it part-time or they don't really know the area.
Well, if you saw the economic news today, too, which was really, really positive. I mean, more really good economic news. It's going to be more and more competitive to buy these homes. You better have somebody who knows what the hell they're doing. That's kind of a big deal now, bigger than ever, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's only the biggest investment you're probably ever going to make.
That's it.
So, but other than
that, it's small.
But Glenn and his team, they started realestateagentsitrust.com. So you can go there. They've already vetted the real estate agents. They know your area. They do it full time. They are truly the experts, and they also share your values. They're listeners of, Glenn's radio show. They're viewers of this show. They're not going to put you in the wrong neighborhood. They're not going to put you in a place where you don't need to be. So if you are buying or selling your home, or especially if you're moving to a brand new area, right? You know nothing about the area. Let these people who Glenn has already vetted, let them be your expert. Go to realestateagentsitrust.com. All right, Jason, what's going on the border other than the fact that there's no crisis?
So it's interesting. The hand of the free market is involved in the border crisis down in central Mexico. I'll explain that in just a second.
Well, that sounds
There's I was just reading this article in the Wall Street Journal talking about how these numbers have just come out. And there's actually a graph that I want to point to now where it shows this is just the difference between last year and this year. Look at the difference between how many people are all that came in the entire year in 2017, 2018, and now that are starting to come in 2018, 2019.
Yeah, and for our podcast listeners, I mean, you're looking at it's about 20,000 a month more in December and January, but in February you're up. I mean, what, 40,000?
That was in February. So yeah, so So it was around 65,000 that had come in February. That number for March that we now know is 100,000.
Oh my gosh.
100,000. They're either coming to ports of entry and claiming asylum, or they're going through, illegally and they're getting caught by Border Patrol, which we all know means they're getting caught and then they're getting released with their little cute little letter that says, "Please come back."
Well, they usually come back.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Like.
Well, especially now that with it being so backlogged, the time isn't a couple of months; it's years probably.
So
In some cases, yeah.
The backlog on one of my cool little notes here that I prepared.
There's no point in bringing small notes if you're going to tell everyone you brought the notes.
She outed me yesterday, so now I think it's just like I'm going to own it. It's my thing. The backlog is 850,000.
Oh my gosh.
850,000.
So how many? And a large portion of them have just been released inside the United States.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But almost 1% of them show up for the court date.
Yeah, it's pretty
So
good.
that's not bad.
A full 1%?
Yeah, not quite, but almost.
Is it that low? I honestly did think it was like.
I can't remember the exact number, but it's close to that.
Is it really? I thought it was more a little higher. It could be. There's different variations on the numbers because some of them are through refugee resettlement, some of them are through asylum claims, some of them are just aliens. So the numbers sort of vary. But it's. I mean, even if it was 90%.
Yeah,
right, that's 85,000 people who are running around the country, and
we have no idea who they are.
We have no idea who they are, and we have no idea when they're going to come back, and we have no idea if they leave or they stay or they commit crimes. We don't know any of it. It's not acceptable.
It's crazy how it's going down now. When these caravans first started, or even before they first started, it was a very lucrative business for those coyotes to smuggle people across. The problem is that they can't take in mass amounts of people. It's smaller amounts of people, but they're charging $6,000 per person. So they're making a killing off this, which the cartels were also, jumping on board with this as well. They're like, wow, we're making more money off of people smuggling than drug smuggling at times. But $6,000 per person. Well, now they've had to basically half that number to 3,000 or below because when these caravans first started, it was more like a political thing. And we talked about that before. It was like a political thing within the country that they were coming from, like Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador. But now, once it got so much media attention, they were like, wait a minute, we're not getting hassled by these cartels or other gangs. There's safety in numbers. Let's just jump on board with these. We don't have to pay the coyotes all these tons of money. We'll just kind of go with the flow. It's free. They give us, they stop at shelters, they give them food. Let's just do that. So that's what they started doing. That's when these caravan numbers are growing so large. So it was just kind of like an interesting kind of aside there that the coyotes are now having to change their business model because the caravans are making it so easy for them to do it. So these caravans are not going away. These are going to continue to. They're going to continue to do that. It's going to continue to get worse. I saw the president today tweet that he was going. If this was going to continue, Mexico wasn't going to do something about it. He was going to put a 25% tariff on all autos, on all cars being shipped over here to the United States. And I thought, I haven't heard a more ridiculous thing, I think, ever. Because most of the, here we go. So I started the Twitter rant. So you think about it, most of the car manufacturers over there that are shipping cars over here, where are they coming from? Where are those countries based? Here. They're U.S. companies. It's like Ford, Chevy, Dodge. So your short-term way to fix this and pressure Mexico is to put a tariff on American citizens. That's basically going to force American companies to raise prices on their own product to compensate, which we're going to have to pay for. How does that hurt Mexico?
I don't understand his devotion to tariffs.
He loves them.
Get it. He loves them.
I would
understand
say he's obsessed with them.
He kind of is.
This is nonsensical.
They don't work. They don't work.
How does that hurt Mexico? Well, they'd be like,
It doesn't.
You're going to make it more expensive for United States people to buy U.S.-made cars?
and that's
Bam!
it's frustrating too because up until you just said that, I was like, okay, so maybe this works out in Trump's favor when it comes to 2020 because, as Pat was discussing, you've got all of these Democrats running who want open borders at the same time that you've got all of these, what'd you say, 100,000 people or whatever who are trying to form a caravan and come into the country. Surely the average American will look at that and say, we can't have that.
Well, yeah, and I think they'll
do something.
They'll look at that and they'll say, at least he's doing something, right? Like at least he's trying to stop it.
And he's not explaining how that works. So if you're an economic nationalist, which I guess that's what he's classified as, that you're like, yeah, stick it to him.
Yeah.
But if you don't explain how it works, like right there, most people probably don't know that.
I don't think they do. I would like for our president to understand at least how they work.
The one way that if you were going to
one person in the country who would,
if you believe in tariffs, the one reason to do it, like let's say you wanted to drive down the cost, or you wanted people to buy Chevys, let's say. So you want to put a tariff on German-made cars. So that way it makes German-made cars more expensive, so you're probably going to buy the Chevy instead. Well, that does not solve that. He's not even using it in that sense here.
No.
Right.
It's just he wants to be able to say he's punishing Mexico, right? I mean,
but he's not in any way.
Well, but if he says he's putting a tariff on Mexico, and look, I mean, if the cars are selling less, I mean, there'll probably be less jobs. There's still, even though it's a U.S.-based company, the money obviously some money goes through Mexico when these are done. I mean, it probably would have some minor
in
impact,
the long term, it might force maybe a factory to close. But this is a near-term solution that he's trying to come up with.
Exactly.
It's not going to do anything near term.
And again, like this stuff always seems to happen when he's in the middle of like, what a wonder. If you open up the New York Times today, which I opened up the New York Times app this morning just to check the news, which is a terrible decision on most days. But I mean, again, I want to find the stuff that they're saying. Like, I mean, that's part of our jobs. And you open it up and it was like a Trump campaign ad. I mean, it was like great economic news. All these things are happening. Like, wages are up by a decent percent. They got a good unemployment report today, and even in there's a glowing headline about the trade war as well. Although when you read the article, again, like all these jobs are supposed to come back from China with these tariffs. What's happening is there are some actual closures in China with certain plants and people moving them out of country. Of course, they're all, over 90% of them are moving to countries other than the United States or going to other cheap countries. So it's not really, none of the jobs are coming back here, which of course is what we said from the beginning, which is not a surprise. But this is his economic theory. He's believed it the entire time, and he sees this as the ultimate punishment. I mean, I just wish if he could abandon these tax increases, which is what they are. Tariff is just a word for tax.
Right.
If he could do that, imagine where we could be. And at some point, they're talking about the China thing. If he goes over and makes that deal and somehow these tariffs go away, which I do not expect, but if they do, I mean, he would juice this economy again. And I think he might sail to re-election if he did that.
Amen. Back in a minute.
You would think that he would tax something that Mexico produces.
Hey, in case you have not yet done so, we have a new YouTube page. It's called Sara Gonzalez Unfiltered, where you can find the videos that I do on social media. We put them all in one place for you. You can subscribe for free. And I also heard that Pat was super excited about that coming up. So he was doing this contest that, like, everyone who subscribes, he's going to show up at their house.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, wow,
and
yeah.
introduce himself personally.
Oh wow.
Right.
Are you going to
great.
sniff their hair when you get there?
I might if they want
Tell
me
them they
to.
look
Oh,
great,
no,
though, also.
It should never be when you never worry about whether they want it or not.
Okay.